So, right at the heart of the race to build smarter AI, there's this huge philosophical battle raging. I mean, it's a debate between two completely different ways of thinking about intelligence, a split that could honestly define everything that comes next. So, today, we're going to break down this clash of ideas, which, as you'll see, Andrej Karpathy has framed brilliantly as a contest between animals and ghosts. And it all kind of starts with this idea from the legendary AI researcher Richard Sutton. If we understood a squirrel, we'd be almost done. Now, what on earth does a squirrel have to do with superintelligence? Well, this quote perfectly captures one side of the debate, this belief that true intelligence has to be learned from direct experience with the world, just like an animal does. To really get Sutton's point of view, we've got to go back to his famous 2019 essay, The Bitter Lesson. It's a really short piece, but it has become this foundational, almost religious text for a lot of the top AI labs in the world today. So, what is this big lesson? It's actually pretty simple, but it's also profound. Sutton basically argued that for like 70 years, AI researchers kept trying to handcraft human knowledge into their systems. But the biggest breakthroughs, they always came from just letting the machine learn on its own using absolutely massive amounts of computation. The bitter part is that hard-to-swallow pill that all our clever human-designed tricks are way less important than just raw computing power. And believe me, the teams building today's large language models took this to heart. For them, LLMs are the ultimate proof of the bitter lesson. Their mantra is basically, just add more data, add more compute, and the model just gets smarter. It's their North Star. Okay, but here's where the story gets really, really interesting. The guy who wrote The Bitter Lesson, Richard Sutton himself, he's not actually convinced that LLMs are the right path at all. Yeah, it's a fantastic twist in the tale. And this creates this amazing conflict, right? The prophet of the whole scale is all you need philosophy is now questioning the very models that seem to be its greatest success story. So why? The disagreement here is absolutely fundamental. The LLM folks look at their models and see the perfect example of leveraging computation. But Sutton, he looks at the very same models and sees something that completely misses the point of his lesson. And here's the core of his argument. Sutton says that because LLMs are trained on the internet, which is just a giant but ultimately finite pile of human text and images, they aren't really learning from general principles. They're just getting very, very good at mimicking human knowledge, with all of our biases and limitations baked right in. And you have to ask, what happens when we run out of that data? So if LLMs aren't the answer, what is? Well, Sutton champions what he calls the classicist approach. He doesn't want an AI that memorizes a library, he wants to build an AI that learns like an animal. He's really taking it all the way back to Alan Turing's original vision of a child machine. The idea is you build an AI that starts with almost nothing and then learns about the world through trial and error, through raw experience. And this really shows you how different that is. In Sutton's world, you skip the massive pre-training on the internet. Instead, the AI learns by actually doing things in an environment, driven by internal goals like curiosity or even fun. It's not trained once and then frozen. It's always on, always learning, always updating its understanding of the world. But as you can imagine, there's a really powerful counter-argument to this pure animal approach. And this is where Andrej Karpathy steps in and brings a much-needed dose of engineering reality to this whole philosophical debate. Karpathy points out what seems like a pretty major flaw in the whole learn-from-scratch idea. He says, look, animals, even when they're born, are not blank slates, not even close. They come preloaded with an unbelievable amount of information. Just think about this for a second. A newborn zebra can get up and run within an hour of being born. I mean, a true blank slate AI just trying random muscle movements, it would be lunch for a lion in about 5 seconds. The zebra's ability to run isn't learned from scratch in its own lifetime. It's the end result of millions of years of evolution, encoding a very, very powerful starting point right into its DNA. And this leads us to Karpathy's amazing core idea. We can't run millions of years of evolution for our AI. That's just not practical. So what's our workaround? What's our engineering shortcut? Pre-training. Pre-training on all the data on the internet. It's our messy, imperfect, you could even say crappy, substitute for evolution's massive head start. This slide just lays out the analogy perfectly. Evolution's source code is DNA, and its optimization process is natural selection. For our AI systems, the source code is just internet documents, and the optimization is supervised learning. The end result? Evolution gives you a baby zebra that can run. Pre-training gives you an LLM that can write. Both methods are just different ways to solve that critical cold start problem. So this all builds to Karpathy's really elegant new way of thinking about this whole debate. Maybe it's not about who's right and who's wrong. Maybe we're just building two fundamentally different kinds of intelligence. And here we have it, the core distinction. On one side, you've got animals, this clean, pure form of intelligence that learns directly from the world. That's Sutton Squirrel. On the other side, we have ghosts. That's what we're building right now with LLMs. They aren't born from experience. They are summoned into existence from the statistical echoes of all human knowledge. They're a distillation of our culture, messy, complicated, and very, very engineered. Now, this animals versus ghosts thing isn't just a clever name. It has huge implications for where AI goes from here. It really forces us to stop and ask, what are we actually trying to build? And that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Do we keep trying to make our LLMs, our ghosts, more like animals by teaching them to learn from real-time interaction? Or do we accept that they're just something fundamentally different and we should lean into what makes them unique? And this brings us to the final, absolutely mind-bending idea. For centuries, we tried to build flying machines that flapped their wings like birds, and we failed every single time. We only succeeded when we completely abandoned imitation and invented the airplane, something totally alien to nature but unbelievably effective. So maybe our AI ghosts aren't just flawed attempts at making an animal. Maybe they're our first airplanes, a completely new kind of intelligence, not meant to imitate nature, but maybe, just maybe, to transcend it.